One of the big things as a leader, if you look at the amount of people playing rugby, how many people stick out as a good captain? You know, you got to know your game as a captain. And so the thing is, I got picked to captain the North Shore Rugby Club, and I didn't captain the Navy teams. But by the time I went to the North Shore, I was a petty officer. So I'd been up in the leadership things. Okay. And I was quite well organised, but I knew rugby inside out. Yeah. And basically, I could control a game. So I could turn around to my 10, what's on? No, I don't like it, you know? And so the thing is, I'm taking it. And I'd say that to Foxy as well. Foxy would say, I want the ball. And I'd say, you're not getting it.
Acknowledged across the world as one of the toughest rugby players to ever play the game, there is more to Wayne Buck Shelford than the man players across the world feared and admired in equal measure. From Ngāpuhi and brought up in Rotorua, Shelford is no stranger to fighting to win on and off the field, particularly when it came to his own health issues in 2007. It's Buck Shelford on Indigenous 100.
Te rangatira, tēnā koe. Nau mai ki tēnei kaupapa. Wayne Buck, can I call you Buck?
Sure.
I'll call you Chief. Matua.
I'm not that old.
No, you're not that old. Hey, welcome to Indigenous 100, and thank you for being a part of the program. Thank you for being a part of the kaupapa. You're a Ngāpuhi?
Aye.
We'll cut the show there.
I get the Ngāpuhi bloodline through my grandmother. Mm-hmm. And so the first two lines were basically Taranaki based, we believe.
Oh, wow.
Taranaki bloodlines.
Yeah.
It wasn't until my grandfather married a Ngāpuhi maiden. That's when we come into the Ngāpuhi area of the bloodlines. Yeah.
See, I just want to make it clear, because I'm also Tarawa on my mum's side. They try and claim you see? And you're, Māori's like, they all try and claim everyone, right? And those fellas go, oh, no. Yeah, he might be Ngāpuhi, but Rotorua, you see? That's what they say, Rotorua. Brought up in Rotorua.
Well, the thing is, my whakapapa goes from...
All the way, yeah?
Because my nanny is actually, she was born in Taranaki. Her father's from Rotorua.
Right.
So he was brought up in Ngāti Rangawewehi, or over the hill, the mountain, two brothers separate the hapu. Wow. So it's one of those, he was in one of those ones. So we're just tracing that line and trying to find it there, and then moved apparently back down to Whakatane, for previous, another generation. Wow. So we're still tracing all that. Yeah, it's quite hard when you've gone around in big circles.
I can see you're quite kind of electrified by that. Is that something that really interests you?
It is, yeah. Well, my brother's tracing it at the moment. Oh. He's having a really good look. Yeah. My brother Daryl, and all the families saying keep going. We're just trying to find out, where we end up.
Yeah, and because you've also taken a bit of a real journey as well.
Yeah, it's been up and down over the years. Back in 2009, 2010, had a couple of years there doing it, and.
You and your wife Jo,
yeah, we're working at the same time, you see, and it becomes pretty hard. And then when they stopped doing it down there, we stopped as well, and there was nowhere we could go. And they set it up in Silverdale a couple of years back now, and at Te Herenga Waka Orewa, and he's doing it up there now.
How are you finding it? I mean, what was it like? Basically, essentially having to learn to do.
When you're in it all the time, it's not too bad. But when you get to my age and you start learning it, your memory's not as good as what it was when you're young. And so, you go there and you do 3 hours or 4 hours of class, and it was good. It was really, really good. And every day you had to stand up and do a small me, all those sorts of things, which was good. And when you can learn things off road, it's all right. But when you get into actually conversation over a table, it gets quite hard. Because you're not quite sure. Because you're not speaking it all the time. Well, Joe's speaking it a lot now, a lot more, and because she goes to wānanga after wānanga, and especially in her practice of rongoa Māori. Yeah, so she's always working in the reo in that space, which is good, and she's getting better and better and all the time.
Yeah. Does she try and drag you along some of the wānanga?
She does. But I'm still busy doing rugby and things like that, and that's been my passion for most of my life, and. She's picked this up in the last probably 20 years, and jump deeper into it. She just wants our mokos to be able to speak it. Yeah. That's the biggest thing, you know, because we're starting to get whiter and whiter in the family, you know, all this stuff, and you know, so I think it's quite lucky on my daughter's side. She married a Taupi from down the coast.
Oh yeah.
So you know, the bloodline's quite strong there in their family, and you know, we've got my son married an English girl, so you know, probably going to end up back in England sometime. You know, who knows? We don't know.
And you got 4 moko now, eh?
Yeah, 4 young ones now. Yeah, they're all good.
Are they kind of aware of? I mean, your kids will be obviously, but are the mokos kind of aware of who Buck Shelford is and what he means to people?
Not really.
Too young, eh?
My 7-year-old says, and my 4-year-old, they say to me, "Oh, you played football, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I played a little bit of football."
Oh, it's okay.
And that's all they ask, you know. "We saw you on TV, Koro, you know, playing football." "Oh, okay." But they won't understand until they get much older, you know. Because my son, when we came back and he went to school, I think in Red Beach Primary School, we were overseas, and he went there as a 10-year-old. And they said, "Oh, your dad an All Black?" He says, "Yeah." And then they says, that's all he says. "Yeah." You know, he didn't know enough about it. Yeah. So he was an All Black, but that's all, you know. He's just my dad, really.
That was when you went to Northampton, I think it was.
Yeah, we were over there for a while at Northampton and Rome. And so we come back in 95, he went to school, and it was quite different. He just, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah.
"Oh." You know, whereas the local neighbour kids are jumping up and down, saying, "Oh, we got an All Black in the area, you know, living here," all that sort of stuff. But, you know, the kids are kids, and it's about being mum and dad rather than being an All Black.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he wasn't overawed with it. Didn't play rugby. He played rugby league. He played soccer. Then he found basketball. He basically played basketball from the time he got back until he joined the military. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, so he followed in your footsteps to a certain degree, right?
He did. Yeah. He got the 1-2, you know, because we were living in Italy at that time, England at that time, and he said, "Oh, I'm finished school. I don't want to go to university like Leah and get a degree and lots of stuff." So I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He said, "I'll go home and stay with Nan." Yeah, like hell, you are. "You got no job, you know, you got nowhere to live. I can live with Nan." I said, "No, you're not. You know, you put her under pressure," and so he within a couple of days he put his papers in to join the Navy.
He was a chef at some stage, wasn't he?
He's a qualified chef.
Qualified chef, yeah.
Qualified chef, you know, cooking for 250, 300 people at a time. Yeah. And it comes to cooking around home, never once. He's never cooked for us. He might make a sauce.
That's what they say, though. Never take the work home. That's what they say.
Well, you know, he's just overcooking, you know, and so he cooks at home for his wife and his kids and all that sort of stuff, and does all that. But my son is really well organised, so he organises a menu for the week, and he pre-cooks a lot of it, freezes it down. He just pulls it out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through, and so it's easy, you know. So he's pretty good like that. So when you're a chef, you get like that, you know. It's just easy for them because they know how to do it. And it just makes cooking a lot easier, whereas we're actually guessing half the time, what do we have tonight? Have a look at the fridge and there's nothing in there, so you've got to go shopping for a start. So he's pretty well organised in regards to that side of his work life anyway.
Where did you meet Joe?
We grew up together. Well, my dad and her dad played rugby league together, and my father-in-law set up the first rugby league club in Rotorua, which was City. And my dad, Pat Bennett, and Pat Mills, they got together, set up City, and they had a bit of a rotor between them, and they separated. So Pat Mills carried on with City, and my father-in-law set up another club called Central. And when I was under 13s, I started playing rugby league for the under 13s, Central under 13s. Yeah, it was cool. And that's, you know, basically we went to school as primary kids as well. Her older brother and I were best mates at school. So we were mates all the way through. He joined the Air Force, I joined the Navy, and we're still good friends today, very, very good friends, you know, even though he's my brother-in-law, we're good mates, really good mates. And Joe's got a younger sister, she lives up by us now. She's a local teacher at the local school, and we see her all the time, which is pretty good, yeah.
So you were staying over with your best mate and just stayed over a bit longer?
Well, you know, Steve stayed at my place as we were young, and I stayed down there occasionally, and then when I had my going away party, that's when I really got to know her a little bit better. Yeah. And then we kept in touch, and a year later she came up to Auckland, and after a year in her nursing home, she was a Karatani nurse, and then she she finished all her training because she had to live in back in those days, and my weekend off, I'd go out to Karatani House, and I'd push the prams around the block a few times.
Oh, is that what they called it?
Courting my girlfriend with a pram, you know. But yeah, we done that all the time, and then I was at sea a lot of the time as well, and so I was away a lot, you know, during my younger years, and we decided let's go flatting together. So we went flatting with a cousin of hers, and he was a maritime rugby league player, and then so we all, you know, I played rugby league back home up until I was 17, until I left home, and know a lot of rugby league people in the circle, that's for sure. You know, I played against Olsen and Kurt Sherlock, not Sherlock, it's the two brothers, Dane Sorensen. Kurt and Dane Sorensen, you know, they played for Mount Wellington, and so I know a lot of guys in the rugby league fraternity.
See, the reason why I ask is because people, all they want to talk to you about is rugby and how tough you were, right? They forget about you and your family, your kids, where you're from, your mum and dad, all that kind of stuff, right? And I think also, you know, given your kind of commitment to rugby and world rugby, is that must have a bit of an impact on Joe. I mean, you got to up sticks when you become a coach, you go overseas, you go to Europe, you know, you got to go together, right? It's important to kind of acknowledge the kind of part that people play in your life that enable you to be able to do what you do, right?
Yeah, you're so right, because when I actually decided to leave the Navy, that was in 1986, you know, and my rugby world was quite different. So in 85 I got picked for the All Blacks, and that was a great honour, you know, for the family. And in 86, in 85 I was picked to go to South Africa, but that tour was cancelled. And so I went on the Rebel tour. But for me to go on the Rebel tour, I wasn't allowed to. The Navy wouldn't let me go. So I said, I'll never have this chance again. So I put in my 717. I was out within 24 hours, and I was in South Africa 2 days later.
And what were families saying at the time? Because as you know, there are many Māori. I mean, think of the great Ngāpuhi centre, J.B. Smith, right? Yeah. Wasn't allowed to play against the Springboks. In fact, I think he captained Australia in the 1950s, and they lost both games or something like that because none of the Māoris could go and play the Springboks. What were people, particularly your family, even Joe, what were they saying to you? You were saying, I'm off, I'm going on that tour.
She was more worried about no money coming in, you know, no job, no money coming in. And so it'll look after itself, you know, there's always something around the corner. So in the end, she came over for 3 weeks, the last 3 weeks of tour. Wow. And so they all paid for, you know, she didn't have to pay for a thing. And we were getting good expenses, you know, through the tour as well. And so we had a bit of a holiday together at the same time and catch up every other day, whenever we could, because we were travelling separately. And so she got to experience South Africa. And but then I decided after that World Cup in '87, I was asked to go to France to play in the off-season. And it went off 87, 88, 88, 89. And 89 had a bit of a rest, went back in 90, and then right through to 95. And so my kids, basically, I said to them, this is just a huge adventure. Just enjoy the trip. And you'll be in schools, we'll put you in schools. And my daughter, by the time we left France 2 years, she was speaking French, you know? So she understands French really well, Spanish and Italian. Wow. So she can get by in the languages quite good, really. And reads all the newspapers, you know, the Latin papers. You know, it's quite easily. But my son didn't pick, he picked up more Italian, but then, you know, he come back with a plum in his mouth at one stage when we lived in England, you know, mum. So he was quite different. Yeah. And,
hard though? I mean, hard moving so much and not being home? And
no, because I was home all during the day. The kids were at school. We'd go and drop them off at school together. We'd pick them up together. My wife and I would go out for a workout every day, you know, especially in England and in France. Because back in those days, it was all amateur. It was still, rugby was at night time. Yeah. So we only trained twice a week. In France, it was 3 times a week. And in England, it was only twice a week. And in Rome, it was 3 times a week. But it was all night training. So we had our days. Joe and I were all together all the time. And, you know, so Joe would go on tours, special tours, because we got to know a lot of people in Rome. And she'd go on special tours that most tourists will never see, underground and underneath churches, special churches out in the sticks and all that sort of stuff. You never see them unless you're even like TV people. TV people are the only people that see these places. You know, when you go on special journeys to places, you know, and you see things that the normal tourist doesn't see. So it's all those sorts of things. And so we spent a lot of time together, and the four of us were pretty close, and we always made sure that the kids had a good holiday in between seasons.
Yeah.
So we spent some quality time with them, travelling to another country, coming back to New Zealand, and we'd spend a good week and a half in like America or Asia on the way home, things like that, and do things quite differently and just spoil the kids. And then we get home, and then all of a sudden their kids, you know, they're that age, they're not too old. And then we get home, and you know, they saw Nan, and they saw Koro, and they've seen all the relatives. Oh, can we go to school with the cousins? Yeah, sure you can. We were rejected up at the school. So it was their holiday, but they're going back to school anyway. But they didn't have to do much because they're only there for another couple of weeks. It was just to get out of our hair and to be with their cousins at school.
Me.
You know, so it's awesome.
Okay. So, you know, I think it's, how many years now you married, Joe?
Oh, coming up 40? Yeah, coming up 40 years.
Geez, you must be doing something right.
Well, she said it better be a good party, mate.
Her celebration, not yours.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's. You've committed almost a lifetime to rugby, right? And I want to get into coaching and stuff later on. But there's always this talk about you being there, and it's interesting after COVID, all these kind of things like maybe because of the Michael Jordan thing, right? You know, the doco. They start talking about, okay, who's the greatest in rugby history and who's the greatest in other sports, right? And people start invariably talking about you and quote unquote the toughness of Wayne Buck Shelford. So let's talk a bit about that. But before I do, you used to say that you weren't a fighter, but you would do anything, you would fight not to lose a game of rugby. Right, you would fight until the final whistle, but not really fight as in physical violence fight. It's to fight to make sure you don't lose. Where does that toughness come from?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose it's, you know, when we were young. I suppose when we were all young, I was the oldest boy in the family, and in the winter, I was working with my dad on Saturday mornings down the job. He was a carpenter back in those, tradesmen. And I go down there and I had to de-nail all the bloody timbers, you know, all that sort of stuff. And then when he brought down he brought truckloads of timber back from the yard that could still be burnt in the fireplace, you know. And I'd be de-nailing all that sort of stuff. I'd be cutting it with a handsaw.
How old were you?
Oh, anywhere between bloody 8 and 15.
Is that right?
I'd have to do the fire every day in the winter. You know, if I didn't do it at night time, I'd be underneath the house in the dark cutting the kindling, you know. And so you learn to get on with these jobs, and you become hardened to it, so you do it, you know.
Hardened to it, but hard working.
Yeah, hard working. So like my mum and dad's property when we grew up so we had one of these houses. It was almost in the centre of the property, and there was a fence along the back wall of the house. And basically we had a garage over one side, and we had a carport on the other side, and Mum had the front, and it was all flower gardens. Dad had the whole back. It was all vegetable gardens and fruit trees. And, you know, big potato gardens over here. When we were all young, we all had our own plot, and we all had to grow our own vegetables. You know, all those sort of things. And, you know, you got to reap what you sowed, which was good. And basically we all learned how to garden as kids. And so, you know, you reap what you sow.
I understand that to a certain degree. I mean, I get work ethic, right? And effort.
But the thing is, but at the same time, we were actually always actually at footy, and you know, and so is the sayings of, you know, get hard and that. I never heard that when I was growing up, and it was just, you know, my dad would just say, do your best. But I know that my mum was actually, so she's Scottish Irish, and basically her 3 brothers. One played rugby league for New Zealand. He was a big tough bugger, 6'6", you know. 6'6", and he played 49 games for New Zealand, and rugby league. 2 other brothers, younger brothers, just down from him, they were both Otago players. Both had All Black trials, and so those guys there, you know, they were tough men. No different to the people up north, you know. They come out of the bush and all that sort of stuff. My dad was a bushman when he was young, before he met my mum. You know, he'd done a lot of different jobs, and he was an MP, Second World War. So he cleaned up in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. and those sort of areas with J-Force. And so, you know, he was quite a hard man, you know, hard on us to do your chores and all that sort of stuff. And so that, to us, that we learnt those characteristics really. If you're going to be good at something, you've got to practice it and practice it and practice it. So playing rugby was practice, practice, practice all the time.
So it came kind of naturally, that kind of...
We all had the ball. We always had the balls, you know. And once we heard, well, we're in our little neighbourhood, there was probably about 6 or 7 Māori families around us. But, you know, back in the day it was pepper pottering the houses, you know, Pākehā home, a Māori home over there, Pākehā one over there, Māori one down there. They were all over the place. But we all stuck together, and we had a field only about 200 metres away. We spent most of our life down there at the field. In our spare time, just running, playing bull rush, playing with the football, playing soccer, all sorts of things. Yeah. And, you know, the Māori families, big families, one family, I think 13 kids, another 6 across the road, another 6 down there. We had 5, and some of the other families, the Walkers down the other side, there was about 8 in their family. So a lot of Māori families in the area, and we all went to school together, and rugby and rugby league is what we did when we were kids. You know, Saturdays, in the winter especially, Saturdays was rugby, Sundays was rugby league. You know, the girls, my daughter, my sister, she actually played netball, volleyball, and so yeah, we're all into things, but you said just do your best.
Where did though the sense of kind of duty of leadership, because even when you weren't the captain of the All Blacks, you know, particularly in '87, David Kirk, well, Andy Dalton actually was captain, but then David Kirk became captain during the tournament. But even before that, there was always kind of this talk of you being a natural born leader, being a natural leader on the field, and a natural leader actually off the field. Where does that come from? Because I get the hard work ethic.
Well, that's a hard one. I think that, you know, when you want to win all the time, it's great to be able to win. But you've got to be able to handle your losses as well, don't you? You know, and you learn from your losses big time. But you've got to be humble with your wins as well. And you know, humility is something that a lot of our people are very humble. But there are a few that, you know, are not humble. You know, and the thing is, so you know, you just let them go and all that sort of stuff and things like that. But I'd have to say that when I went into the Navy, it really showed me what discipline was. You know. Even though Dad, you know, if I mucked up at home, he always had the belt ready to give us a twang, you know. and so, yeah, there's 4 of us brothers, and the difference in age is 10 years between my youngest brother. So, you know, he was only a baby a 7-year-old when I left home. So I didn't really know him, but I knew the other 2 quite well, and we still get on really, really well. And I think that going into the military hardens you up big time, you know, because you're actually, it's different to Civvy Street, quite different. It's a yes sir, no sir environment. And when you're young, you just don't say anything. You say something, you'll probably get a clout, you know.
But it's very hierarchical, right? Yeah. So how is it though that, because in an All Blacks hierarchy, and we all hear the stories, and some of us unfortunately aren't that talented enough to get there, but there are these stories that there is a hierarchy in the All Blacks culture and the All Blacks team when you come into that team. How is it that someone who wasn't a fresh young man going into the team, you've gone through the Navy and all that kind of stuff, but wasn't the captain, but still was seen to be the one that people went to when times were getting tough on the field? Well, how did that happen, and why you?
Well, I tell this story. I talked to a couple of guys the other day at Andy Hayden's funeral, and so the thing is, my coach, Bert McLean, Kairo, when I was playing for Navy, he went to Brian Craze, who was a current All Black Auckland coach at the time, and basically said, when are you going to pick Buck Shelford for the Auckland team? Yeah. And Brian said to him, as long as I'm alive, my ass is pointing down, he'll never make the Auckland team. Wow. He said he's too dirty. And so the thing is, and Bert,
well, hang on. Why were you saying? Because you've made it very clear that you weren't. You detested, actually, is the word that you use, fighting on the field.
I don't have a place for fighting. You know, when I was young, you used to see the cheap shots all the time, and there used to be fighting, but not. You know, I think there was more fighting as I got older. Yeah. You know, as kids, we didn't really fight that much, but as we got older and got into more senior rugby, there was a lot of fighting.
But you invariably didn't start a lot. I mean, even the ones that people talk about a lot when you were in All Black, you didn't start those fracas is probably a word to use. So where did this idea that this selector had that you were a duty player come from? Simply because of the aggression you had on
it's the amount of, I can still use a swinging arm and hit you across the chest and hurt you, things like that. And I don't have to hit you around the head to hurt you. And I can still use a shoulder on you and hit you at the same time as hard as I can and hit you to knock you over, to tackle you, but it's going to hurt. It could hurt, And so, play hard, play clean, but no cheap shots, And I think that being in the military, going from high school, in high school, I suppose, we, in the 2 years, and I was in the first team at Western Heights High School, we were the top team in the Bay of Plenty. Our school was were the top in the Bay of Plenty since when it opened in the 60s. And we carried that tradition on. We'd win 19 out of 19 games a season, or 20 out of 20 a season. And that's, it wasn't until we got outside the Bay of Plenty we started losing games. And we went up to King's College in Auckland, and we played them. They come down to us once, and basically we drew. All right, went to Mata Boys College, and we lost that one, but it wasn't in our rohe of Bay of Plenty. And George Simpkins was the coach of that team, and the average age of that team when we lost was 19, because they all wanted to go on the trip to Wales. So they stacked the numbers against us, that's for sure. And so, we played against tough schools and predominantly Māori schools.
You played Te Aute a number of times too.
Yeah, well, that was later on. But my brothers played in those games, and I think in the Bay of Plenty alone, Māori schools, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so, just in the Bay of Plenty alone, there's 17 Māori rugby clubs.
Yeah.
And the football is tough. Yeah. And so the thing is, I brought a couple of players out to play in Devonport from overseas. They couldn't believe how hard it is. And I said, you go down to the Bay of Plenty, we'll give you a couple of games down there. And they said, wow, totally different rugby down there. Yeah. No quarter given. The hits are hits, and they smash the hell out of you all the time. So that Māori rugby is just so physical compared to some of the rugby I played in Auckland. Not as physical as Rotorua.
Right. Okay.
And so I made the Auckland
so
team.
You think
I eventually made the Auckland team because Brian lost his job and John Hart got it. So maybe that's a blessing in disguise. And so from there, we played games against Waikato, and we had games against Bay of Plenty. And Andy used to come to me, or one time in Bay of Plenty, Andy came on, Buck, what's the problem with bloody Hika, man? He's bloody man possessed. He's bloody smacking his shit out of him. Andy, tough football down here, boy. If you don't like it, you get off the field, And that's the whole thing. The upbringing in the Bay of Plenty is quite a tough upbringing.
But how does that translate though to leadership, mantle of leadership on the field?
Well, I think that came in the military, because in the military you go from being a lackey to a corporal, to a sergeant, and a staff sergeant. And so in my world, it was a leading hand, which is a corporal, AB, leading hand, petty officer, chief petty officer, warrant officer. So you go through all those, so you're learning leadership all the time. So as a leader, you're the leader of probably a group of, say, 10 or 15 guys. And one PO's got with you as well, and you're the leading hand, and you work with these guys during the day. Not all the time, because sometimes they've got different jobs they have to do, and you just move around and work where you can. And then when you actually get to the next position as a PO, you might have 30 people under you, and so the thing is, and you're taking classes and you're an instructor. So you're taking instruction over people, with 15, 20, 30 people. And if you're a GI, you could be having a whole 100-man guard to take control of as a corporal.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have the voice, the mindset to be able to do it, and it's just so disciplined, And you've got to be hard on the troops, because we can't afford to make mistakes when you're marching a 100-man guard in to visit the Queen. Things like that. You march in, you go to a stand at ease, stand easy, and you stand there for, could be an hour.
Yeah.
And then guys just, pow. So it's a discipline, it's a hardness that you've got to prepare yourself for. And it's just the That's not hard, but you get better and better at your leadership.
Yeah.
So you start on the basic leadership, then you get more complex and more complex and more complex as you go through. So they're different leaders. And
I guess the reason why I asked the question is I managed to come across Nick Farr-Jones actually in a pub in Sydney one time. We were over for an All Black game. And we're talking about, by the way, he never beat you, but anyway. And I said to him, what was the difference between the teams that the change, obviously, between the Aussie team that would just struggle against the All Blacks in your time, vis-a-vis the team that he led that went on to win the 91 World Cup eventually and started winning games in 89. What was the difference? He said, well, he started talking about you actually, and he said, well, there's a difference between a team led by or that had Buck Shelford in it and a team that didn't. I said, okay, well, quantify that for me. He said, well, he found it hard to kind of talk about, but he said, the man has an aura about him. And yes, you would fear about running into him and getting hit, or fear about him running into you actually off the back of a scrum because he'd have this look on his eyes. And you could see him trying to describe it in words, but he couldn't actually do it right. But he said the difference is the man had an aura about him. And this is why I'm trying to get to about the leadership thing, is that yes, I get and understand your training in the military and stuff, but there's something innate, something about you that was different about the leadership of a David Kirk or an Eddie Dalton or after you, Gary Wetton.
well, I thought, you're looking at the way you've just said it, is that one of the big things as a leader, if you look at the amount of people playing rugby, how many people stick out as a good captain? You got to know your game as a captain. And so the thing is, I got picked to captain the North Shore Rugby Club, and that was I didn't captain the Navy teams, but by the time I went to the North Shore, I was a petty officer. So I'd been up in the leadership things, and I was quite well organised, but I knew rugby inside out. And basically, I could control a game. So I could turn around to my 10, what's on? No, I don't like it, And so the thing is, I'm taking it. And I'd say that to Foxy as well. Foxy would say, I want the ball. And I'd say, you're not getting it. Because I'm probably the only person who would actually turn a 10 down. Because nearly every ball that you have going out in the game goes to the 10. Yeah. And last Saturday's game, Sunday's game, where the Blues actually played against, who was it? Well, they won the game anyway. It was the Hurricanes or the Chiefs, something like that. Yeah. And basically...
Oh, the Chiefs, yeah. Oh, no, Highlanders.
Highlanders. Yeah. Well, it was that game, I looked at it and I thought to myself, Akira Wani, that's the best game I've ever seen him play as a number 8. He's so the 10s they actually come up with some moves off the back of the scrum. They're using him because he's big and powerful. Well, I turned around to Foxy, you're not getting it. So Wani's starting to do the same. But whether he's being told to do it from the 10, rather than he's just doing it just off it by himself. Yeah. He's asking the question, if I give it back there, they're going to kick it, or they're going to go to a ruck over there. So I might as well go first.
How did you? Because these are lessons in leadership that we're talking about now. How did you inculcate that kind of sense or feeling within your other team members, even though you're not the captain? I mean, as I say, David Kirk, World Cup, 87. He doesn't have the last word. He gives it to you. How were you able to influence your team without the kind of quote-unquote rank or mandate of having that title, but still able to have that influence that says in the key leadership moments, in the key leadership times where they're required, it's, I'm not the guy to do this, I'm going to hand it to Buck. How did you influence that? How did that come about?
Well, a lot of the things that the people that are in the front of me and off the scrum, right, every one of them's in front of me. I'm the last person with the ball, so I can determine what happens with the ball. So I work with my 9. I can work with the 6 and 7s and play off with them. The fastest way to the gain line is around the scrum. Yeah. Whereas you go to the 10, you're going sideways twice, and then you kick it, or they drop it, or it's a bad pass. Whereas if I pick it up and we play over here, we get across the gain line, we then can play another couple of phases off that. They get the ball on the front foot, whether it be kicking or whatever, and we rake off an extra, just for me coming off the back. You might only just get past the gain line, but we've got some flow, bang, another one, bang, move, put the ball downtown. It's just an easier way to actually feed us a back line that's going forward, and the back line is beat a backline that's going backwards.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's about the mindset all the time that if we're going to attack, let's use every avenue, and the avenue of attack off the back of the scrum, which modern day rugby players don't do many anymore. And Akita's now bringing it back, and so is the big Fijian number 8 for the Chiefs. They're starting to attack off the back of the scrum, and they're getting some really good yardage, and it gives more space for the backs to play in.
Okay.
It's not a silly thing, but it's just you've got to share the knowledge of how you want to play the game. So my 10, Grant, well, I know Grant was a fantastic 10, so was Frano. The only reason Frano wasn't there because he didn't look after the other side of his game, which was kicking. So the percentages are quite different. Foxy was up here, Frano was down here. But if Frano would have been up there, who would have been the better player to put there? They both call a game.
Is that what ultimately led to your demise as captain of the All Blacks? Was the fact that there was a perception that you ran the cutter on the field, and that there were people who were disenfranchised by that, who felt that you were too controlling on the field, you didn't give Foxy the ball when he wanted it, he went and moaned to Hart or whoever else it might have been, or Grizz at the time I think it was, and they effectively said, yeah, it's we need to move past it here. What led to that demise in your view?
Well, at the end of the day, I know what happened. You know, I do know what happened. I've talked to Grizz about it, and he was under so much pressure during that era, and especially that '89 year. Come 1990, I played the first 2 games against Scotland, and Grizz actually dropped me that time there, and that's after that second test. And
what did he say?
He just rang me up, and I knew it wasn't him. He was under so much pressure. At that stage there was huge animosity between Auckland and Canterbury. Officialdom, everything like that. Hardy, coaches down there.
But you were North Harbour at the time. I mean,
well,
you were one of the biggest foes of Auckland rugby at the time.
That's right. But the thing is, the Aucklanders were very into getting their own person in as a captain. They wanted to play the Auckland brand of rugby, not the All Black brand. Right. And so you can't play the Auckland brand if you're an All Black. If you're an All Black, you play the All Black brand. And so there was a lot of this happening in 1990. They wanted to do their own thing. They were going away from the game plan. And I said to them, if you go away from the game plan, you won't be playing the next game. So there were little things like that. And, in the end, I remember back in '89 that Zinzan Brooks said to me, he took me aside at our last dinner with our wives and girlfriends before we flew out for Wales and Ireland. And I thought he was going to talk to me about him going to Manly, sign a deal with.
Yeah, that was the rumour at the time. Yeah.
And so the thing is, he said, no, it's not actually. It's I've been told by John Hart that I'm going to get the test matches. I said, who told you that? Well, John Hart told me, and oh, okay. And I said, Zinny, if you're playing better than me, bro, you can actually have the position. But until then, let's let bygones be bygones. Thank you for telling me that, because you have to have a good tour yourself. The only way you're going to get in there is get into that seat is by having a bloody great tour. But he didn't have a great tour. Yeah. Didn't have a great tour at all. And so I think it's maybe because he was too tied up doing the video movie and being the clown on tour, that sort of stuff. But good guy, and it's never been between him and I. And so the thing is, and then on that particular tour, we went co-captains with Whitten, Gary Whitten. It was a co-captain tour, not a vice captain, co-captain. And so there was something in the background that was going on. And I found out in 1993, this was from Mike Brewer, and we went down, we had my wife and I, Mike and his wife, Phil Gifford and his wife, and we were having dinner together the night before a test match on a Friday night. And basically he said to me, he said, Buck, did you know that we're having meetings behind closed, the Aucklanders having meetings behind closed doors to get rid of you? And that was what was going on behind closed doors. And Mike was invited to go along, and he said, no, I'm not going to have this shit. And, he sided with me. He said, because, if Buck was playing poorly, I'd say, yeah. But if he's not, and he isn't, he said, you can't just oust him for that, And so there was a power play to get rid of me as captain from the Auckland team. And they got rid of me eventually back in 90. I went after that, and I said, okay, time to move on. I can get over things pretty quickly. And basically, my wife doesn't. Yeah. My wife doesn't. But,
But there was a groundswell. I remember.
So there was that groundswell. Yes, there was a groundswell,
and a crescendo building up. And I think the last game before the Rugby World Cup squad of '91 was announced. We're getting real into rugby here, but you were playing Wellington. One of the only times actually I cheered against Wellington was when you played in that game. Yeah. There were two of you. You in the North Harbour team. Lawrence Helena was in the Wellington team, who were potentially being looked at as being All Blacks at the time. And those were the two that people were talking about at the game. And they announced the team at Athletic Park under the stadium. Did you basically know, because I remember you ran off the back of the scrum a number of times in that game. Did you know then that it was all up? Did you know you weren't going to make it then, or?
I rang Grizz up. I was in England at the time, and basically I said to him, what chance have I have of making the All Blacks for the 91 World Cup? And he said, Buck, come back and give it a crack. And, that in the end of the 90s, and that was a 91A.
91 was the World Cup.
91, yeah. And I came back and I gave up going to the Pilkington final, because we made the Pilkington final that year. And I came back for a trial. And I was the only number 8 that wasn't injured. And everyone else was injured, but I didn't even get a look in, And I came, that was at a trial. And I didn't even get a look at it, yet I thought I played pretty well. I captained my side. We gave the other side a bit of a hiding. And hey, it was all good. And I think that, I might be a bit of a slave driver on the football field, but I get things done, and that's what it's all about. It's about doing if somebody is not doing his job properly, I'll support him. But if it just carries on, he's got a problem. Well, at the end of the day, we have to replace him,
How tough is it to deal with that, to make sacrifices for things, big things? Giving up a Pilkington Cup final those days. That's like the Heineken Cup nowadays in Europe, right? It's a massive
60, 70,000 people.
Yeah. So how tough is it to? How did you deal with that? I know you said you brushed it off, and your wife. Takes a while, but particularly when you've got so many people across the country, who were pretty, pretty angry about it.
I was, philosophical, because I got dropped out in 1990, and I played that season and went. That's when I decided straight over to Europe. Went back, played that season. I only came back to play in the trial, and it was on the same day that the actual Pilkington Cup was on. So I had to make a choice, and I talked it over with my wife, and we said, "Yep, let's go home. I want to have one more crack, one trial, irrespective of missing out on the Pilkington Cup." But all the Northampton people said, if I would have been playing, we would have won that cup, And so the thing is, it was a late try, or no, they went to extra time, and they scored a try in the last minute to beat us. But notwithstanding that, it is what it is. It's part of the history, isn't it? It's what makes the merry-go-round. And so when I didn't make the World Cup, I ended up doing media overseas. And I tell you what, I saw the first dinner and the last dinner. And they were chalk and cheese. The guys at the last dinner, I could have, I was just so disappointed in them. It was a completely separate team. One with Grizz and one with Hardy. And so the thing is, and when Grizz took on the job as the All Black captain, he went to the NZRU and he said, this is one of the things that I found out. He went to the NZRU and says, I want Doug Bruce as my assistant. No one else. No, he's ordered to take John Hart as his assistant. That's that. The NZRU trying to bring these two provinces together, all that sort of stuff. But because they're trying to bring them together, but it never worked with those two together, you see. And I just think that Grizz was on a hiding to none, in the 1991 World Cup, with the way, and just talking to people that I know. I know that the Aucklanders were uncoachable in the late 80s. They were uncoachable. And so the thing is, we don't need coaches. We just do it ourselves, And so you can't get that in football, because when you hit the shit hits the fan, they can't get themselves out of it.
You can't do it in life either.
No.
No matter what, not
That's
sport,
right.
business,
But
or
then
anything like that.
If you can't fix it on the field, well, you got no coaches, you got no coach input because you didn't want them. You know? And so that's when the team started, the leaders in that team started taking over, didn't want the coaches as well in the All Blacks. And so their failures, and you saw it when they walked through the door, they were nearly all absolutely hammered. And there's nothing wrong with being full, but the thing is, they hadn't even ironed their shirts. And it was just so disappointing. Whereas when I was with John Sturgeon, he'd say, make sure you iron your shirts, but half the players didn't have ironed shirts. And they just, no ties down here as they walked in, you know? And that's the All Blacks of the 1991 World Cup. They walked in the opening, all right, but the way they finished was terrible. You know, so I thought there was big problems in there right then. And then go 91, after everything was finished, everyone thought John Hart was going to get the All Blacks. He didn't. And Laurie Mains basically come in and took the helm. And I liked Laurie, and I get on really well with Laurie. And basically he said to some certain players, he said, you don't play my way, you're gone. Straight away, just like that. Got them all together. And then all the stuff come out of the press, we haven't been told what's happening, blah, blah, blah. They've been told all right. Yeah. They've all been given the short word that if they don't front up and they don't perform, they're all gone. Yeah. You know? And so Laurie is a different kettle. They could not beat him. They could not beat him down like they did Grizz.
I love hearing about this because as a Wellington fan, I hate Auckland rugby. No. We'll move on. Well, it's not about me. Hey, let's move on. What does it feel like for you when people? I went to an Australian tennis open, right? We're sitting in the crowd. I can't even remember who the game was. It didn't really matter. It was great to be in Melbourne, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this sheet gets unfurled. Sheet gets unfurled, and on it says, "This is like in the 2000s," and on it says, "Bring back Buck." Yeah. What's it like when that kind of thing happens?
It's quite humbling. Yeah, it's very humbling. I took my own sign overseas with me one year.
Bring me back.
Well, it was a World Cup actually. It was in 2007 when they lost.
Oh, they needed you.
And my daughter and my son put it up. You know, they put it up
Really?
and draped it over the top. We brought Buck back. And my daughter was saying to me at halftime, "Dad, your team's losing." It's not my team. It's not my team. And it's New Zealand's team. And so she kept saying that. And 20 minutes to go, "Dad, your team's still losing." And 5 minutes to go, "Dad, your team sucks." and so the thing is, the game was all over. We'd lost the game, and my daughter said, I said, "Go and take that sign down." She said, "We'll leave it there." And she said, "Oh, no, you better take it down." So she went and got a knife and went flip, and let it just sail into the air off the stand. We weren't going to carry it anymore. You know? But, I'd never been so, not embarrassed, but intrigued by the way they lost that game. Yeah. You know, and the thing is, I actually got home and I had that tape and I went over it and over it for 3 or 4 times in a row.
You must be terrible to live with, man.
Well, no, my wife doesn't sit with me when I do this. So I just watch it by myself and I just diarise certain things. And I tell you what, and it's been brought out in Richie's book, their leadership model back then, irrespective of it, a lot of the leaders, there's very few good leaders coming through out of rugby because what we do as coaches, we take the leadership off them by preempting everything.
Still, even now, we do that now, do you think?
Well, not so much now. But the thing is, if you look at the way they actually played, and even when they took Dan Carter off that day, all that sort of stuff, and Richie was lost. They didn't know how to break down the French. And so the thing is, they were just trying to do the same thing, pick and go. They didn't try to spin the ball or anything like that. And just, I would have done a few other things, tried a few other things. We still had time. We had about 10 minutes. We were pounding inside their 22. But it was just like they were devoid of ideas. Drop goals, all that sort of stuff, And so the thing is, and then when we watched the 2011 one, where we won it, I thought to myself, we got out of jail really, and just certain things in that game, which I was wondering why they'd done it, and they'd learnt their lessons supposedly from 2007, and so leadership was, you got your senior leadership team with Kieran and Richie and Dan, and there's about 6 or 7 of them, and these guys are smart guys, but under the pump sometimes they look at things differently, and
it's a response to pressure thing, right?
Oh yeah, totally. And so the thing is, I noticed that they actually, in that particular game, they just went defensive in the last 20. They just got out and they'd kick the ball down, they go defence. They'd tackle, turn the ball over, kick, absorb. But they only had to give away 1 penalty in their half, and they would have lost the game. And so I wonder, but the mindset to actually back your defence, take away your attack, we had a better attack than what they did, and we didn't use it. So you're taking away a threat, and something we, it's probably, if anything else, our attack is probably better than our defence.
Well, why are you still so, I don't know, methodical, observant? Why are you still so, because there's an emotion here that I get from you, and I'm sure it'll translate on camera, that is, I mean, you must watch these games and you break them down, you go through them and you think about, changes in flow and ebb and flow of game and all that kind of stuff. Why are you still so heavily and emotionally invested in an outcome of a game like this? Because
well, the thing is, you learn from your losses, and so the thing is,
but why do you do this with other people with games that you're not even directly involved with anymore?
Well, it's interesting because I knew straight away when in 2007 we lost. We've got no leaders out there. They're not making any right calls, any good calls. Yeah. They haven't changed anything.
But do you think you have a responsibility to help?
No, it's just the way I am, because one of the big things I find in New Zealand that we're all doing the same crap every weekend, every training night. We do the same crap all the time. I try and do things quite differently. So I actually went back in 2008, and I actually, after my year with cancer, and my mate said to me, can you come back and coach the second team down the club? And I said, yeah, okay. And I didn't know these guys from a bar, so I didn't even know the first team. All the players in the first team didn't know them. I only knew the 2 coaches because we played together, and I didn't know anyone in the second team, so I got my mate, he came up, he's a Navy boy, he came up and became my manager. And I just said to these guys, I said, right boys, we're just going to have fun, play and all that sort of stuff and support the first team. And after 3 games, we had 3 losses, and they said, Buck, we haven't got a game plan. And I said, tell me what a game plan's about. And they said, oh, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. You tell us what to do. They preempted plans. And I said, yeah, well, I can't actually give you a game plan when you can't hold onto the ball. You actually can't win the ball in the scrums. You can't throw the ball into the line out. You can't lift properly. You miss tackles, and you'll catch and pass the last 2 passes and it's gone.
Inspirational words, yeah.
And I said, I can't give you a game plan, so we might as well just go out and play like that. What do you reckon? And they all looked at me and they were dumbfounded. I said, no, but I'll tell you what, here's the answer. I'm going to train your skills, and you'll train your skills in each department, and you're going to get better and better. All right? You're going to get better and better. And then they said, and I said, you can't kick the ball away. What do you mean? You can't kick the ball away. So inside our half or inside our 22, play the ball. Don't kick it away because we don't have enough of it because of the mistakes you make. But what if we drop the ball and they score? It's not my problem. That's your problem. You drop the ball. That's what I'm trying to say to them. Yeah. You've got to look after yourself and learn to get better by training the skills. Yeah. And so we come second that year. We made the final. We lost the final by a point. We won it the next year. And they said, talked to all the guys and they said, for the last 2 years, it's been the best rugby I've ever played.
Wow.
Because I was a coach that allowed them to play.
How come you've never gone on to be, I'll use the phrase higher honours in terms of a coach, because you coached North Harbour, you're fairly successful as a coach in North Harbour too. You coached overseas, you were fairly successful overseas as well. How is it that you as a guy, because obviously you're still very much attached to the game, you still know the game, you still know what the game requires, you still know the basis of a game, you can still coach a team. How is it that didn't happen? How is it that you as a guy who is an institutional legend in the game never became a coach that took a major team, a New Zealand team, an All Blacks team. Why did that not happen?
It's not through want of trying.
But
I applied for the Blues job 3 years, for three times.
What happened?
I got an interview the first two, didn't get an interview the third one. I applied for the New Zealand Māori job from Japan. They said, they didn't take people who are outside the country. Oh, yes, so what happened to Robbie Deans and Henry and all those sort of guys, and all that sort of stuff. So,
what do you think is behind that?
Well, when I coached at North Harbour, there was a video that was done, and it portrayed me in a bad light, using a few foul
some
words.
colourful use
Very
of
colourful,
vocabulary.
yes. And so the thing is, and I don't think they liked it. They said, but pretty old school, and yelling at a few of the players. Well, they bloody need it when you're down by bloody 20, 30 points, things like that. But I have to say that we made the top 4 years in a row, and yet we got demoted to 5th because Taranaki beat us at their home ground. All right, and so and so I was pretty proud of that record. We made semi-finals 3 out of the 4 years I was there, and I never had a look in for any other team. And so the thing is, I went to Saracens, and I took over for half a season because Francois Pena jagged in and went back to South Africa, and I took over. And by the November, December, I think it was in November, our CEO passed away. And we never had a CEO, but only a general manager. He didn't know what to do. And then come 31st of December, I actually had to fire 6 guys because they were $300,000 over the bloody salary cap. And so for every dollar, you got charged free. Yeah. So it was nearly £1 million they would have to front up with. So I let 6 guys go, and then they brought in a bloody Australian, and he fired everybody. And basically, it was just, he fired all the ponds, everything.
It just seems to me that the video is a convenient excuse not to give you a gig. There's got to be more to it than that.
Like I had the Japanese university, and we had 2 years in semi-finals, but we didn't have the big players like all the top universities in Tokyo have, but we had a good squad. We had a really good squad, and some good guys. Just a little bit small, we had, But notwithstanding that, it's one of those things that after I got back from England and in Japan, I said, nah, that's it. I'm giving it away.
But it just seems to be.
I'm over it.
It seems to be cyclical. I mean, a guy like Dave Rennie. Yeah. Successful coach, wins 2 super comps. Obviously can imbue a team with a winning culture. Coaching in Australia.
Yeah.
What is wrong with the quote unquote system that allows that to occur? I mean, it seems to have happened in your time, and it's happening again now, and I don't get it.
Well, you've got to just have a look at it, and you think to yourself, how many Māoris do we have coaching in the system? And how many Māori coaches do we have in Mitre 10? How many administrators we have in Mitre 10? How many Māori coaches we have in Super Rugby? Not many. Very few. How many administrators at that level? None. Or very few. And then you get to the top team, exactly the same. I was invited up to watch the Māori game up in Vancouver a couple of years back, and it was really, really good. The Vancouver rugby actually flew me up there, not the NZRU, and go up and support the Māori team. And so I went up there, and we were staying in the same hotel and things like that. And after the game, I had a good talk with Tiki Edwards, who's the New Zealand Māori liaison. And we had a great chat. And I said, Tiki, paint me a picture, bro. Paint me a picture. Or describe to me this picture. Why have we got a Pākehā manager? Why have we got Pākehā coaches? Why have we got Pākehā physios? Where are all our Māori people? And so the thing is, why aren't you the manager? They said, I'm not qualified. So you've been the Māori liaison officer for the last 11 years. So what's this picture saying? Well, we can't even get Māoris in to be on the coaching staff or physios. And so the thing is, there's a lot of bias there, and it's there all the time. Okay. A lot of people don't see it. I see it. I talked with Jamie about it, Jim Love back in their day, and there's a lot of bias to Māori. It's probably they just don't see themselves doing it, but they do it. You know.
Okay, couple of other things. So, how? This may be a bit too personal, but I think it's worth posing the question to you. How scared were you in 2008 around your health?
Oh, I wasn't really.
Really?
No, I wasn't.
You were pretty positive.
I was very positive. In 2007, once I was diagnosed, I just said to my wife, I said, "We just got to fight this, and eat healthy, try and stay fit, especially during the treatments, 6 months." And then it was about getting back to health, and because as you do your chemo, they give you this pill to do this, and then they give another pill to stop the stuff that happens here, and because there's a side effect of every pill you take. So if you're taking 4 different pills, one pill's for the side effects of this pill, side effects of that pill, and side effects of this. So yeah, it's quite hard. But at the same time, I was doing work with, I was working with a naturopath. So we're eating cleaner food and all that. So we still eat fairly clean today. With the odd fish and chips night, there's no harm there. Once a week, once every fortnight, whatever it is. KFC, might have KFC once a month, if that, And just because it's fast food and it's just down the road. Yeah. And we can't be bothered cooking because we cook basically 6 days a week anyway. Yeah. And so, it's just one of those things that we actually got through that first year, and it was just about looking after myself and looking after the family and still going to work and doing a bit of work.
What was the attitude similar to the way you approach a test match? Was it this is a fight? Yes, it will be tough, but I'm just going to fight it and win and beat it and win.
Yeah, totally. And so the thing is, some people lose that battle, and Big Andy Hayden just lost his battle with it, And so but he actually had 2. He had leukemia first, and then once he was looking after that, and he gets hit with this other one on top of it, It makes it a lot harder.
But your attitude, very similar approach. Very similar approach.
And the thing is, you got to fight the fight when it comes to your sicknesses, and lymphoma is exactly what Andy had. I've had it as well, and it was right through my whole body. The whole body was riddled, and so, but I still had to go through the whole 12 weeks or 6 months of treatments, and getting to the end of it, we cut back on a lot of things. We started doing a lot more with the family, taking the kids on trips and with our mokos and all that sort of stuff, being more of a family. Doesn't mean to say we didn't do it beforehand. It's just that we think more about the kids now than what we did before. Joe and I, because when you're moving into retirement frame in your 50s, So I've been clear since 2008. So 13 years basically, 13 years, and touch wood, all going good. But
get your checkups.
But I always get my checkups. I go in and get 2 bloods taken a year, and that way there I know. I just know because it's going to either come back fast or it's going to come back slow. He said they do come back.
So it's in the back of your mind.
Oh yeah, well, I'm always making sure that I have my medicals. So one medical a year, and I go and get my blood test on the medical, and halfway through the year, and the next year another one. So that way I'm checking the bloods twice a year really. Okay. Yeah. So that's you find everything in the blood, and so it's just that when it does set up again, we can be on top of it straight away.
Oh, good on you.
Yeah.
Good on you. Do you? Look, I don't know if you know. There's clips of you for Africa on YouTube, doing certain things.
All the wrong clips.
So, have you seen them? And if you do see them, what do you think when you see them?
Yeah, I get a bit annoyed sometimes because they always show me throwing punches, but it's the same clip over and over and over and over. Same couple of clips. And the thing is, if I look back at my career, probably, if anything, I probably only threw 5 punches in a game, in a big game like that. 5 punches, and with all the other minutes I put on the hundreds and hundreds of other games I've played. It's 5 probably different games. I wasn't that type of person. I played my rugby hard, and there's a big difference between hard as in dirty, but hard as in physically hard, knock guys around, all that sort of stuff, and then and basically try and win as much as you can, on the football field, win all the little inches.
So that irks you, seeing that, as opposed to, say, coming off the back of the scrum, the pass to David Kirk, setting up the try for John Kirwan in the World Cup final?
Well, it's doing the hard yards to create something for somebody else more than anything else. And it's not about me scoring the tries, but, to be on the back of the All Black scrum that I had, man, it's a try fest. Because we were just so good at scrummaging, and the guys just love scrummaging, And so, we actually...
I imagine it would be irksome, right? Just seeing all these old clips of you.
And so you look at those clips and, just show the football, where I'm playing footy, And so the thing is probably because they're looking at John Kirwan all the time or Michael Jones. I'm doing a bit of work, But notwithstanding that, I just enjoyed the era. It's probably one of the... During that era that I played, it was a very successful era. And, that can't be taken away from us as a team and as a captain. And I think that, we missed out on the pro world, but we actually still were working all the time. Mr. Hayden was working for us in the background, trying to get us more, all that sort of stuff.
Putting the building blocks.
Yeah, building blocks to actually turn the game pro. And I finished in 90 for the All Blacks, and 92 was their first ever paid tour. Yeah. So we went from, I think it was £6 or £8 a day, £8 a day, which is about $20 or something like that, and enough to buy you a couple of beers. And then the first tour, they're $30,000 each, and then now they're on megabucks, megabucks. And so the thing is, it was a long time coming, but it's been to the detriment of amateur rugby, which I'm sad about. I'm really sad that it's happened, because I've been coaching at that club now for since 2008.
This is Takapuna?
No, North Shore. North Shore. So I started coaching in 2008. I coached for about 10 years, somewhere down there. Now I've been on the committee and I'm the president. And so I just see rugby differently to a lot of other people. And because what happens is everything we've heard about COVID is all about, sports. It's all about the professionals, the international teams. What about the amateurs? There's nothing being said of the amateurs,
The clubs.
Yeah, nothing said about the clubs.
Netball, rugby, all of them.
Yeah, all of them. Nothing. It's all about the pros. The pro netball teams, the pro cricketers, the pro this, the pro that. Look after the pros. It's their livelihood. Yeah, but the livelihood of these sports is further down.
Community.
Yeah, down the bottom. And so the thing is, we're always looking for money all the time, and we don't get a lot because a lot of the funding is taken by the middle tiers. So basically, in New Zealand last year in rugby alone, in the Mitre 10 Cup, only one team out of the championship and the premiership made a profit. Yeah. So all the rest of them are in the red, big time. So if we're going to go into the red, why have we made this semi-pro? Why don't we create a different model? A different model. So, because when you play 3 years in that thing there, and in the model of a Mitre 10, in the championship or the premiership, and you don't get picked for the next level, you're going to leave anyway. Yeah. So if they weren't being paid, will they still leave? Yeah. You see? So this is where they bring the pros are all over here playing their year, and they want to come back and play Mitre 10. It's like rugby league saying to rugby league pros, come back and play for your amateur club. Would they let you? No, they wouldn't. But they've got the best of the world. They can come back and play Mitre 10. They can come back and play for the club. They get everything. Why do they get everything? You've taken a lot away from the amateurs. You've taken the best players away. You put them in these academies, and not many of them make it. Maybe out of a big academy like Auckland, you might make, say, 6 or 7 per year, might make it. But they don't always go to Auckland. They get shelled out everywhere else. Yeah. And if they don't make it there, they're gone overseas. So they're stealing all the youth. They're young, very early, and if they don't cut it, they're gone.
It's not sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable. So we can't. So there's it costs to around figures to actually run a Mitre 10 premiership team and a championship team. It costs around about $1 million for salaries, more, maybe more, maybe 1.2, 1.3, and so we just haven't got that sort of money at that level. So all the players, so every year as a club, we're paying $14,000 to $15,000 a year to the union to subsidise them. Every club on the North Harbour, every club in Auckland's got to do the same thing. You know, all those sorts of things are going on all the time. And so the thing is, the Ranfurly Shield is played as a double for a championship game or a premiership game. Why?
Never used to be.
No, never used to be. It was played off as a one-off, but they did blend it into NPC, you know, for the last couple of games. So you're playing for two. And I'm just thinking about now, why don't they give that trophy, the Ranfurly Shield, give it back to the clubs? We have a club of clubs, like a FA Cup final with our 27 provinces. You know, give some mana back to the provinces, back to the clubs of the provinces. And the championship team for every province gets to play in the first round, except for one team. So 27 teams, you get 26 teams, 13 games. So you get the bye, you go automatic next round. So the next round is you get 13 games, so you have 13 teams, 14, so you get 7 games. All right, then you move down to the next one. It's only 5 weeks long to the final, but that's the best team in New Zealand for that year.
I look forward to you taking that fight to the NZRU.
Well, yeah, true, but the thing is, you know, it's what I see is they're looking after the pros, but they're not looking after the amateurs.
I agree.
Back in the day of New Zealand Māori, where's all the amateurs? They were all amateurs back in the day, and all the All Blacks were in there too. All right, so they still have the All Blacks in there, but it's totally full of professionals. Where's that? You know, where's those 1 or 2 really up and coming young players? Māori boys, you know.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think it's I think there's a lot to kind of unpack that we won't be able to solve in this session between you and I, particularly with me in the room. But I do think your passion for the game, the legacy you've left behind for the game, is something that people will always hold on to, and you are obviously still very much, you know. The game is you. The game is you, right? And your passion for it and emotion for it has been obvious to us as a part of this session, but also I think hopefully is not lost on those who still have some sway in the game, and I think it's really needed. The other thing I did want to say very quickly before we conclude is that you know, my 10-year-old self wouldn't believe that my 45-year-old self would be sitting down talking to you. And there are a lot of people like me who grew up on the game of rugby, not necessarily as good as you, in nowhere shape or form as good as you, but you inspired a generation of people like me, and for that I wanted to say thank you. And I hope that you stay well, that your family stays well, that you particularly stay well, and that whatever you aspire to keep doing, that you do with the strength and tenacity that you had when you were playing All Black rugby. Thank you for your time. Tēnā koe.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, mate.